Hello, my friends. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, a certified child life specialist, and I'm so happy you're here today to get to introduce you to an amazing woman, Gay Grossman. I always think that the best teachers and supporters are those who have walked the path before. And for families who enter the rare disease world, Gay Grossman is that person for you. She is a passionate advocate who has literally walked the path before you. She has navigated the incredibly confusing world of genetic testing for multiple years. She has worked in gene therapy. She has helped families navigate IEPs, and her resume makes her an expert and a sign of hope for so many families. In our conversation today, Gay opens up about her personal story, starting with the early warning signs that something wasn't quite right with her daughter's development. Despite being told from doctors, multiple of them, to just wait and see, she trusted her mom gut that we talk about so much, and she ended up going down a path that I know was exhausting, that I know was challenging and confusing and upsetting, but it led her to a daughter's diagnosis after 45 specialists in 15 years. One of the wonderful parts about my conversation with her was that we didn't just talk about the medical challenges, but she also talked about the challenges that she faced and the emotional and psychological toll that this takes on you as a family. One big takeaway from Gay's conversation that I know that I will take away is how important it is for babies and children to have access to genetic testing so early. This can truly save lives and provide crucial information and help guide treatment and care decisions. But navigating even genetic testing is exhausting. So that's why it's amazing that someone like Gay is out there to help families who are starting and embarking upon this path and supporting them through it. I actually just talked to a friend in the rare disease world, and Gay goes above and beyond. She talked with them for an hour this week about how their daughter could get better at taking medicine. So this is the incredible patient advocate and friend that you get to have in your life as a rare disease family. Through it all, she emphasizes three things for parents. One, the importance of building that support network. Two is remaining organized throughout the process. And three is finding the strength that you absolutely will need in a community or mentorship. So whether you're a rare disease parent joining us today or just interested in more and learning about navigating this path, I'm so glad that you're here. Wonderful. Well, I'm incredibly jealous that you get to be in lovely San Diego right now. And then my aunt did tell me, because we were there for my uncle, and she said, there's a reason that people don't stay here, and it's because it's so incredibly expensive. And
Well,
she
you
was
can
exactly
definitely pay
right.
for the sunshine, right?
Yes. Yeah, you do pay for the sunshine. That's right. We get plenty of it here in Austin, but it comes with a price.
Yes.
Yes. Well, Gay, I'm so incredibly grateful and honored to have you here today to speak about your experience as a mom. Would you go ahead and just introduce yourself to our listeners? Let us know who you are, where you live, a little bit about your family, and what makes you you.
Sure. So I am a very passionate patient advocate, and I help families with a lot of different things, whether it's school or IEPs or insurance. I work in genetic testing, as I shared with you. Um, I've worked in gene therapy. There are a lot of different things that I've done that I help families with, and the advocacy work is probably at the top of my list of things that I do in my life.
Yeah.
Um, I also spend a lot of time volunteering in my community, and I'm involved in a lot of different organizations with like Women in Bio and Athena and different groups where women congregate who are involved in science. Um, I spend time with people who are studying in different areas and they're interested in different things that I've done in the past. I was self-employed for 20 years. So I talk to people who are interested in doing things like that. So I feel like I'm at a stage in my career where I can give back and I can share the experiences that I've had and help, people who are just starting out. Um, I spend a lot of time walking and exercising at the end of my day. It's kind of how I download my day. Um, and something that I probably would like to spend more time doing is reading books that are not about things that I just mentioned.
Oh my goodness, I can so relate to that. I've been a bit of a reader lately, and on my Kindle I picked up a story, and the the main character, had a son who had a cancer diagnosis, and I thought, I don't know if this is my book for right now. I think a lot about this stuff in my daily life. I kind of want to go to maybe like a fairy tale world or something like that, or maybe a
I
thriller.
agree.
I don't know.
I agree. I am in a book club that meets once a month, and it's really nice to kind of escape that all for a little bit.
Mm,
But it also is something that I'm always interested in learning more about. So I tend to gravitate to things
yeah.
under those
Yeah.
topics. So,
Were you
but
a
I also
scientist by trade, or what got you? I might know the answer to this question, but were you a scientist by trade, or did you find yourself getting really interested in that?
no, actually, before my daughter was born, I used to work for a pharmaceutical company.
Okay.
And I believe that a lot of the confidence that I have working with companies came from that and being in the hospital with my daughter. But also, even before I was doing that, I was a sales rep, actually. This is when I was really young and I was just starting. I worked for a pharmaceutical company. But before that, I worked for a company that developed software
Okay.
for hospitals, and it was used to take demographic data and aggregate it and let them know where to put urgent cares on which street corner.
Wow.
And this was, back in the 80s when urgent cares were becoming very big and everybody wanted to have every street corner, have one, and different hospitals were doing it. But anyway, that's where I started. And then I went to pharmaceutical sales. And so when I had my daughter and I had been visiting hospitals for years and years, I was really much more confident walking in those doors and having conversations with doctors because I was well aware that although I only knew a very, very small percent of the medicines that were available to patients, I was very well trained and I was taught how to read studies and I was taught how to compare to different products. And so by the time I was going in there with my daughter, I was able to have conversations with doctors and the hospital staff and not be intimidated by the experience. And I think it really gave me a leg up on helping her and advocating for her very early on.
Yeah.
I knew what grand rounds was. I had presented at grand rounds before, and I was, comfortable with the things that happened in a hospital.
Yeah.
So that really helped a lot for when
I'm
we were
sure you
there.
got the question a lot, like, "Are you a doctor? Are you a nurse?"
Yes,
What
but interestingly enough, I studied English and economics.
Okay.
So I was not a fan of studying science. And
Yeah.
I remember very clearly when I was learning about the Krebs cycle in biology. And I remember having a lot of questions about it and thinking, I just need to get through this test. I don't really have to learn this. And then I remember when my daughter was very young and they were talking to me about mitochondrial disease, and he drew the Krebs cycle on a piece of paper and he was explaining it to me. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is
Oh,
like
whoa.
karma, right?
I
Because I didn't want to learn this. And so now it
Ouch.
was definitely becoming a big part in my life.
Yeah.
So I wasn't planning on going
Mm.
into science when I graduated because I did marketing. And so I did marketing for that company that I was explaining with the software. And then it was really kind of a natural transition when I got married and I was moving. I wanted to go to a company that had really good training. And a lot of the pharmaceutical companies have, and at that time had very good training programs. So that was where I focused.
It's incredible in reflection, these pieces that have put you directly where you are now to just be a confident advocate for yourself, but for others too, and teach others how to do it.
Yes, it's a
Um,
full circle.
Take us back to kind of the beginning phases of finding out that something was going on with your daughter and some of that advocating you talked about. What was happening? What were you seeing? And what were you experiencing as her mom?
Well, I was experiencing a lot of things comparing, right? You're probably in a play group when you have a new child, and I was comparing my daughter to the other three, and she was doing some things faster and some things not. So she could roll very well, but she would not get herself up on her hands and knees to crawl. And when she did get to that point, her arms would often collapse. And as she got older and she started really missing the milestones that should be coming around, that's when I started asking questions. And the thing that is very common that happened to me, that happens to a lot of moms, is the doubt that we think and we will put on ourselves, but also others put on us in the healthcare system. And I was told things like, this is your first child. And, I would think to myself, yeah, but I've been babysitting since I was in seventh grade and I don't really remember. you know,
Mhm.
babysitting a baby that was doing things like this or not doing things like this. And, I had friends and I had taken care of some of their kids. So I wasn't complete, even though I wasn't a mom until then, I felt like I
Right.
had a little bit of background. Um, anyway, I was told a lot, to wait, wait, wait. And I am not a waiter. I like to make lists and I like to check things off the list and I'm very organized. And so I
Mhm.
was following up on this. And I finally took my daughter to a friend of mine when she was 9 months old. Actually, her daughter was 9 months old. My daughter was well over a year old. She was at this time, I want to say she was about 14 to 16 months and she
Yeah.
was not walking at this time. And I took her to my friend, the physical therapist, and I said, "What do you think?" And her 9 month old was walking around in socks on slippery books and all kinds of things on the floor. And I thought to myself, oh my God, how have I waited this long? Right, to
Mhm.
really push because I had already been to a number of doctors. At that time, I'd switched pediatricians 3 times. I was
Yeah.
really trying to get more answers, but her phone call, I was able to get to a neurologist to get a brain scan. But even then, I was told, see, we told you so. We told
Mm.
you nothing's wrong. We told you you just need to wait. She's going to walk any day. And there was just kind of this sense in me that I didn't feel like she was going to. And then she has a movement disorder. So when the movement started, that was reaffirming that there was something not quite right, but it still wasn't getting me to the place I needed to go. And the more that the movements continued on and they would become more severe and they would become more consistent, and we started doing things like we had to do things like take her to the emergency room because we just couldn't make the movement stop. And it would be during an appointment and I would say to the doctor or the therapist that we were seeing at that time, what do you think I should do? And often I would be turned to the emergency room thinking that perhaps she was having a seizure or maybe they would know something. But by the time she was 8 years old, we had seen 45 specialists and nobody could give us an answer. So she didn't end up getting a diagnosis until she was 15.
Wow. That is a long time to wait.
It's a long time to think that you might be doing something wrong to hurt your child, and that is what really haunted me at night, was thinking that, was I feeding her something? Was there something in my home that she was allergic to?
Oh,
Was I exposing her to something that was harmful to her? And
wow.
there was no way to know that, and that was the most challenging thing.
Oh my goodness, I wanna go give you a hug because here you are, like, just relentless in the pursuit of answers.
Well,
Relentless,
I think
and
sometimes you have to be. I mean, we had to be, and we're in a different time now where we do have things offered, with the genetic testing, but we didn't have that when she was young. So
right.
it wasn't like anyone was doing a wrong to us other than I do feel like we were passed off a lot.
Mm.
But we were absolutely organized about how we were going forward and meeting people. And every time I had an appointment, I would say, I need 3 more people that that I could talk to.
Ooh, love that.
And so we always were following up with more people. And we did, I remember very clearly the day I was sitting in, it was here in San Diego. We didn't have a diagnosis yet. And I was sitting in a parking lot and I got a phone call back from someone that I had just mailed her very large binder to, all tabbed and organized for him. And he said to me, um, I really am impressed with what you've done. However, I have to tell you that every single person that I would recommend to you all over the country, you have already seen.
Mm,
So we were at the end of our list.
mm. Truly.
Literally.
How did that impact you if you can take yourself back to b and we can say balancing, I don't know that that's the term that it probably ever felt like, but being a mom, being a person yourself, advocating for your daughter's needs, all of her appointments, your working, your family life. Can you look back at that time and identify any ways that helped get you through? I'm definitely hearing that organization is one of them, right? And just staying consistent and asking. Were there any other support systems, whether it was a friend or your husband or um, a group that helped carry you through those 15 years? Or did you really have to kind of look internally and like build on this internal strength?
When I think back at those times, I think about how I functioned during the day, because the other thing that people leave out of this equation is school.
Mm,
And I always say that the school project is as large, if not larger, than the medical project, because it's every day and it's just as challenging to learn that process of school and what your rights are in school as it is to learn insurance companies and the medical system.
yeah.
And it's so important. And we enrolled our daughter in typical schools throughout her life. We did that a lot because she wanted that. I actually put her in a school that she would have more attention, one-on-one with her in different therapies, but she didn't like it. And
Yeah.
she always did that. She would always steer away. As a matter of fact, I put her in a camp one summer, every summer for a week, that had kids with disabilities, because I wanted her to see other kids that had disabilities and know that she's not the only one, and that really all of us have a disability. I mean, if you
Right.
took my contact lenses away, and I also have a genetic variant, and there are disabilities that really we all have. We just learn how to accommodate them, and our society
Mm,
has different ways to accommodate for all of us,
right.
but not for people who have a severe disability like she does. And so one of the things that I did daily was I had always had a legal pad or some kind of, full page notebook, and I would split it into 4 quadrants, and there was always the medical, or for, whatever my daughter needed, and then there was the work, and then there were the phone calls, and then there was, the places I had to be physically. And
Okay.
so rather than organizing myself on a calendar, I actually did it on quadrants on a legal pad, because it was
Wow.
easier for me to see. And I had
Mm.
all my phone calls I had to make. And I always put this is my tip. You always put your most unpleasant phone call first,
Ooh, my dad calls that run to the danger, and I love it. I think
because then
about
the
that.
rest of your day is so much better.
You've done it. You've checked it off. You got to
Yeah.
the
Call
hardest
the
thing
insurance
first.
company first.
Yeah. I love, the ability to be creative in the way that you get through your day, because I think right now, especially on social media, you talk about comparison and this is how this person does things, and, even the way I function in my business is different than other people function. You have to find what works for you. And
Right.
even if it's not the popular thing that everybody else isn't putting their legal pad into quadrants, but it worked for you and that's how you got through. And it's trusting that gut instinct of like, it doesn't have to be the way everybody else does it. It can be your way.
No, and I didn't have social media.
Mm,
I mean,
right.
this was back in the day, right? My daughter's 27 now.
Yeah.
So there wasn't, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but I remember when she was very young and the internet was just starting. This is when she was 2, and I remember putting in information with her symptoms and the page just slowly loading.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, "They really think we're gonna shop this way, because this isn't gonna work." Like, this is just too slow.
I'm not sure about this internet thing.
But that's how I found different
Yeah.
doctors.
Wow. Wow. What were your attributes of your favorite doctors, your favorite care team members?
The ones who admit they don't know.
Mm,
We had a doctor, Bruce Cohen, at the Cleveland Clinic, and I remember he would say to me, "It's not possible for me to know everything. So if you go somewhere and you learn something, I want you to come back and tell me about it. And I
wow.
will support wherever you want to go." And we still keep in touch with him. And it's, I think it's doctors like that. None of us can know everything. So we all have to help each other. That's why we all have to have a team. You have
Mm,
to build your team, and you have to have mentors that are from different parts of your life. And that's one of my favorite things also, is that I have friends who are different ages that are very, very dear to me, who help me get through challenging times and career choices and all kinds of things that I do in life, because you need that person who is a decade older to
yeah.
remind you things that seem really important maybe aren't.
Yes. So you get to, it's how can we cover 15 years, but you get to that diagnosis day. You finally get your answer. What does
Mhm.
that feel like?
We got it, on our BlackBerries back in the day. I remember getting
Mm,
the email on my BlackBerry, and, it was through a study, and they said, "We found something." and one variant may be treatable and the other one we don't know anything about. And so we went and had a probably 2.5 hour appointment with our neurologist to learn about it because there wasn't anybody else. There was just this one family that had like this facial twitch, and there just wasn't a lot of information. But there was that feeling of like, okay, we kind of closed that chapter, but now we're beginning a whole new thing that we don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Because now you have to figure out a whole new plan. Like we always had our story down of why we needed to get a genetic test and how this was going to help us get the answers. And this is back in 2013.
Right.
So, we would meet someone, we kind of have our story, but then all of a sudden we had to really change, and we realized that we needed to get our story down. And the next story was, we have to find more people. We need at least 100 people to start research. How are we finding those people? How are we sharing our story? And it was all about building that community so that we could have that number to attract a researcher to get us to the next step. The other thing that happened was she was diagnosed with an undiagnosed mitochondrial disease for so long. And now that, which if you have a mitochondrial disease, the statistic is that 80% of kids don't survive till they're 20. So we, as a family, always functioned that we were the 10% and we were going to survive. Now, my daughter obviously was not included in those kind of conversations, but that's how we function. Like, we didn't function with, she doesn't need to learn this because she's not going to survive that long. We function like she is going to survive. But certainly it was on, knocking on the back of our head.
Right.
And I didn't realize how much until we were told that she would live. So we had to change our plans a little bit, right? Because now we have to think of, okay, well, she's cognitively typical, so she might want to go to school, and what's that going to look like? And
Yeah.
We really need to move even faster.
Right.
If you can imagine moving faster than changing the lifespan that she had, we felt like we had to move faster to give her opportunities.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
We set out to find those 99 families, and we did.
You found them. How long did that take you?
Not as long as you would expect. So because we were in this study, we had the opportunity to share our story, and it was the institution that did it obviously needs funding, right, to do more of this research. So we agreed with them that we would share our story wherever they wanted us to, as long as they put the gene name and the website that we had come up with. And we took her to any conference that we were offered to go to. We took her anywhere that we could share the story, we did. And we put symptoms in articles. We did anything that we could do that someone searching would find us. And
Great.
They found us. We figured out how to get them testing. We connected them with researchers. We found the researchers. We went and visited the researchers, and we got them working on it. And we found something that stops the movements.
So this is essentially a happy ending. You found something.
This is a happy ending, but we're still not finished. We still are working. We still have more to do. So the movement disorder the movements are so severe in some patients, like my daughter. She's one of the most severely affected, that she uses a wheelchair. She has 24/7 care. She gets an infusion every month for 5 hours over 2 days. She takes medication 4 times a day, and she would like to get rid of those helpers. She would like to be able to function independently and go places without making arrangements, be able to come home anytime she wants, just make things more accessible to her. She needs help with daily living, things that you and I would take for granted. So we are working toward that. But the movements that kept her up all night long in pain, and I mean that literally, these movements are like watching someone have a seizure, but she's awake and aware, and they're painful, and that has stopped.
Thank God.
Mm-hmm. Now she sleeps all night.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I'm so amazed by your strength, your ability to communicate. Did you know you had this resilience inside of you, as you were waiting on her diagnosis? What's something
I
you
don't know
learned?
if I did. I mean, I feel like at times I didn't have the resilience because I certainly, um, came to, like any parent would, you just think maybe this isn't possible. Maybe
Mm,
it's insurmountable when you're in the middle of it, but also we were functioning on very little sleep, and we were very focused on her school and
yeah,
getting accommodations for her in school, and so it was day to day.
yeah,
Um, you're not planning strategy, you're living in crisis, and
mm,
it's a much different way to live.
yeah,
Now we can have strategy, and we can help her live her best life.
right.
We're not just trying to get through the day.
And you understand that better than anyone, which puts you in the perfect position to be in the job that you're in now. And I can imagine how it feels to be able to give families the answer that you wish you would have had or the option to find out what was happening. Tell us a little bit about your role right now as a patient advocate with GeneDx and maybe some of the more commonly asked questions or ways that you help families thrive or even discover or try to make it through day to day.
So, leading patient advocacy and engagement at GeneDx is, to me, it's a gift that I'm able to give back in this capacity. Being able to help a company better understand where families are coming from. And, I also bring with me the experience of working in a gene therapy company where, talking to families that are considering entering clinical trials for diseases that are often fatal, um, being able to have conversations with families like that and really be compassionate because I have lived thinking my child would not survive. I understand the way they feel. Um, the role that I have now, I feel, is being on the front end of that process that families are going through is, to me, something I didn't have. And it's something that I just feel everyone needs to have access to. So I
Yeah.
remember what it was like not having that option. And for me, it feels so unfair for families that today have the option, but for some reason can't get to it. And so that's what I want to help families get to is if they do not know the gene that is causing the symptoms of their child, then they do not have a diagnosis. And it's so important for families to understand that because we have gone through a time since my daughter was diagnosed with undiagnosed mitochondrial disease. She was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, epilepsy, all these things that so many families have those diagnoses that today we have the genetic ability, we have the ability to get that genetic diagnosis and give that diagnosis to a family so they can most likely get actionable treatments. I mean,
Yeah.
some things that families have, it means you should not be taking a certain drug, which
Mm,
was the case for my daughter. She was
right.
better without the drugs that she was taking. And we know so much more. But also, it's a challenge for families to get there because it's new, it's changing, insurance,
Yeah.
payments. How do we do all of these things and help families get there? And so that's what I do in my role. So a few things that I've done is we make sure that with every genetic test that leaves our lab, there are resources with it. So it,
Mm,
it used to be that you would get your genetic test result and you would sit with your doctor and hopefully they could lead you somewhere to the next step. But how is a doctor supposed to know about all of these disorders? It's
right.
not possible for them to know all of these things. And it's really unfair that we think that. So what we're doing is we're putting that information right on the report so that it helps the provider, right? It helps the doctor talk to the family, but it also helps the family. And we give a
Yeah.
phone number. So they get in the car. We all know that feeling of leaving the doctor's office and getting in the car and being like, now what?
Right.
Well, we've given you the now what. The other project that I'm really excited about, I'm working on is with the Child Neurology Foundation to teach families how to fight a denial with their insurance company.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a master at this. I've never lost an insurance battle in 27 years.
Okay, lead every interview with that.
I
I
know.
think
Well, you know what? You learn there's a process, but the most important process is on the parents to really understand their policy,
it is.
because it's not always the doctor or the test or the durable medical equipment, or it's not always the insurance company.
Yeah.
It is sometimes the policy that you have subscribed to does not cover. So it's really important. And so anyway, in this project that I'm working on, we're going to teach people about that and how to look at your policy and how to deny it if it is in your policy. Because if it's in there, you're paying for this policy. So you
Right.
need to know it. I compare it to your car.
Yeah.
So if you go in to get your car fixed because say something goes wrong with the engine, the engine light is on. If it's under warranty, it's going to be covered, but you might have to go to a specific place to get it covered. You might
Right.
not be able to go to the mom and pop on the corner. So you need to understand about your car, where you can take it, what's covered, how much it will be. There's different costs on different things, and you're going to get a different outcome. But it's the same thing with your medical care.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. How do families get to you? Do they type in I need a genetics test? What do they type in? How do they find you?
Well, I'm available to anybody. So yes, people can contact me. They can contact me, on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. They can read our story online. But yes, we can, if they come to me through GeneDX, I can get them to someone to help them. We have a great support team there. We have a lot of information on our website, but I can help them get to either the person at GeneDX, or I can help them get information that they can take to their doctor to have a conversation with them, because this is an important conversation to have between a doctor, a genetic counselor, and a parent.
Right. So what can they expect as the process? They reach out to you, they get connected with someone on the support team, and then they get connected with a doctor who can help walk them through it?
Yep, they can get connected
Okay.
to their doctor, and if their doctor has questions, we have people in the field that can go and go to their office and talk to them about it. Genetic counselors are out in the field. But we have also a service that is free genetic counseling at GeneDX if they get an order through their provider, and the form is right on our website. And they
Okay.
can talk to someone before they get testing to learn about, just general genetic testing. And then if they have questions after they get their report, they can talk to someone then too.
It kind of feels like you're giving families a partner in the path to diagnosis and that
Well,
it's
that's what we
not them
want to
trying
be.
to figure it out.
Right, and we wanna be a partner with their doctor and their genetic counselor as well, but, they just need to know where to go to ask questions, and I think that that's part of it, and I
Yeah.
think that's why it's so important for us as a company to work with advocacy organizations that are working with families that are looking for these answers, and we really try to that's why I'm there. I'm there to help people, and I'm there to, get people to the place where they need to be to get their answers.
Yeah. Well, they're so lucky to have you. The other part I love about the perspective you bring to your job is not just the helping the patients, but what you bring to the business and the company side of this industry and being the person to say, I've lived this. This is what it's like. Let's look at how we write these materials. Let's look at how we talk to families because that is so important.
It is important, you're right.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to share what your experience has been like as a mom, and for continuing to just be a partner for families in the path to diagnosis, because that's really where the answers can start to come, the treatment can start to come, and so I'm grateful that someone like you is there for them.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah. Are there any other questions or stories or things that you wish that I had asked you that we didn't get to cover that you were hoping to talk about?
Um, I think maybe the importance of families seeking out other families and the support that they can get from advocacy organizations. I think that's really important, and I think that,
Okay.
if you have a doubt about something with your child or a family member, it's just really important to keep pushing through and get to the answers,
Hmm. Well,
rather than
explain
treating
that a
some.
little further.
Well,
So
so in my situation, when I couldn't get a diagnosis, because it really wasn't available for me to get a genetic diagnosis at that time, it was all about treating the symptoms. And I think that we are still at that point in healthcare where a lot of times we're treating symptoms and we're not treating the genetic cause. So it's like if you have a rash, if you just keep putting lotion on it, but you keep walking through poison ivy, you're not getting rid of the rash. Like you've got to find out what's causing it.
Yeah.
So, the genetic component is very important to families. And you also cannot start research unless you know the gene. We could
Yeah.
not start anything. We couldn't connect with anyone to help us until we knew the name of the gene.
Right.
So it's just important that we know that the tools that we have available today are different and they're better, and everyone should have access to it.
Yeah, it's staying open and staying curious and finding a provider, I think, that will help you on that path. It's one of my favorite tips to give
Mhm.
is you don't have to stick with the pediatrician that has just known your baby since birth. You can shop around, you can find someone else, you can ask for other referrals and really find that provider partner to help
Yes.
you navigate it.
Yes, and sometimes it makes families feel a little bit more comfortable when you say to them, "Just add someone to your team. Don't get
Mm,
rid of the pediatrician that you're so comfortable with, but add
yeah,
someone else."
yeah.
You don't have to have a confrontation with them and get angry and, say, "You're not helping me enough." Just say, "Great," and then you can go home and call another
Mm,
pediatrician or another internist or family doctor or neurologist or whatever is appropriate for your child. But you can call a genetic counselor. You can get another appointment and add someone. It doesn't mean you need to subtract.
that's perfect. Well, thank you so, so much, Gay. I'm so, so honored to have you here. And we'll absolutely link to your LinkedIn, to your other podcast episodes, to Gene DX. And I'm just grateful for your time today.
Thank you. It was really great talking to you.
You too. I'm going to